Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies. How are you?
We're good.
Hi. Yeah, doing really good.
For everyone in the chat already, hello, hello. Nice to see you here. Welcome back. You may be wondering what the heck is with that intro. My name is Jeff, and Amy and Gabe here are joining for a chat about the differences between Class 5 org staff and Sea Org staff. Um,
hmm
Amy actually requested that us two Canadians speak with her regarding this, and because she has a lot of questions. And so, of course, we cannot say no to the Queen Bee herself.
Oh my goodness.
Um, and we are honored to be on your channel as well as streaming to everyone's channels. Myself, I am PTS for life. And Gabrielle over this side, no, wait,
No.
this side is Escaping the Cultiverse A. And she has some really cool interviews coming up. Please make sure, sorry, that's the wrong one.
That's okay.
Please make
That was a good
sure
one.
you can buy her coffee too.
Yeah.
Please make sure you pop over to her channel and subscribe. She's just shy of the 1,000 subscriber mark, and I would love
Right.
to see that change so we
So
can
close.
Yes.
get some
Oh yeah.
monetization happening for her. And so
Yeah.
she's not just doing it just for nothing other than the fun of it. So
Yes.
um, yeah, with all that, I will hand it over to you, Amy. Ask away.
Yes. Well, let me just first start by saying that thank you for what you did in the UK, Jeff. And I sent you a little gift that I noticed you're wearing. You want to show it to everybody?
I love it. SP Meritorious.
It's bigger than
Oh,
Tom Cruise's medal.
it's bigger than Tom Cruise's medal. It says SP Meritorious of Valor. Okay. So yeah, he's got one too. I wish it had diamonds all over it.
I'm
But
wearing it with pride. It's fine, just the way it is.
oh, but anyway, so much love to both of you. I watched your video, several of your videos, both of you, and your chats, and I just find it really fascinating because, I started at a mission when I was 14 years old, and then they recruited me full time, and I was just like a body router. And then I joined the Sea Org really super young, and I was there until I was 42. And while I was in the Sea Org in upper management, I managed the Sea Org, the Scientology sector as one of the sectors. And I have so many questions and so many things that I would love to talk about because I know that you guys had a hard time, a very hard time. And
Yeah.
there were things that I tried to do about it that, that got sideswiped and I got RPF for whatever, right? Since I always go to the RPF.
Amy, what year was that?
Okay, so let's see. I mean, I went to the INT base in 1983, and then I went into management right after that, so 84, let's say. But I was over the Watchdog Committee in terms of I was the organizing officer over the Watchdog Committee, by that point. But when I went into the Watchdog Committee myself, it was in 1991, and I started as So I started as for Celebrity Center, and then after a while took on the Sea Org sector and the Scientology sector and was holding all of them. But and then I was also over the Flag Bureau, which manages all of the organizations. So I've got a lot of stories and a lot of questions. And my mom, she was a flag representative in the Seattle area. But she was always she was also getting in trouble all the time too. I got to hear on the back end of things.
I should say, sorry, just in regards to, I just realized a lot of people watching probably may not know who Gabe and I are in our relationship. Both Gabe and I were on staff in the Vancouver organization at the same time. I was bookstore officer, and she was the has / cope-off / which are for staff posts. That's essentially the person who's in charge of all the recruiting, the ethics, any kind of justice actions that are happening in that org's area. So her and I, sorry, and
communication.
Communications.
Yeah, exactly. And so her and I aside from me constantly being in trouble, her and I did get to know each other very well. And as far as people, quote unquote, terminals, as Scientology likes to call them, she was one of my favorite terminals to speak to. And despite
Terminal.
having this horrible post that I know she did not like doing, she always approached it with empathy and care as best she could, even though she was, following all these bad rules. So her and I got to know each other very well, and I love you very much, Gabe.
Oh, Don, you're gonna make me cry
already. Well, just so you know, I actually, don't even get me started, because just thinking about doing this interview, anyway, let's not talk about that right this second. Yeah. So let's go back to, so now, and then didn't you also do hold the executive director of the organization as well? So this was Toronto, right?
No, and I'm in Vancouver.
You're in Vancouver.
At the time. I moved just recently to Ontario, not Toronto.
Okay, Ontario.
Yeah.
Okay, and so
I was the ED back in the early 90s.
Okay.
Just before the first golden age of tech hit. And
I was right.
Hit, exactly. And that was crazy times. But I was actually put on post by an RTC mission.
Okay. Wow, I didn't know that.
I'm dying to find out if this person, there was 2 ladies that came in and basically got rid of quite a number of staff. And I mean, I was kind of like, I was a staff section officer at the time, way down, and I got elevated up to the executive director position for Vancouver Foundation organization. And it was a very tall order.
Oh boy, I can imagine. So now just hold on for 1 minute, because somebody said that I need to check my mic. So I did a mic test beforehand. Can you guys hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Hear you.
Okay. And how about the people in the chat? Can you hear me okay when nobody else is speaking? Can you hear me okay? Just let me know.
There we go.
I don't know. Hopefully it's fine. But anyway, if there's a problem, we can fix it. Amy's good.
Amy's
okay,
good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lorna.
Thank you for that. Well, thank you for taking on that job when nobody else wants it in the whole universe.
Well, I didn't know what the heck it was all about. Like, I had no training whatsoever, even though I was actually down. It's a whole other story, but I did spend a year and a half in Los Angeles on the OEC FEBC, one of the second or third evolutions that they actually had at the Hollywood Guarantee building when the International Training Org was still there.
Yep. Yeah. Did you finish that?
Didn't even get close. I was finishing staff status 2 off when I got there.
Okay.
That's how good it was. I was on staff for about 6 months.
Wow.
And fun story with that too. So recently, when I was going through my mother's stuff, when we were clearing out her estate, I found a knowledge report that she wrote on. My mom wrote on every single staff member in the organization at the time, because she was very upset with how things are going, and Gabrielle was actually mentioned in it. But she said good things about Gabrielle. Yeah. Said that she had promise and everything. But I thought it was pretty funny because I had no idea that we were even on staff with my mom.
Yeah, I remember your mom very well, actually. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. So you're second generation then, Jeff, huh?
Yeah.
And how old were you when you got in?
I was born into it. Both my parents were in Toronto, and then they were both in the GO before it disbanded, and they moved over here when I was about 3 months old, which would have been 1982, and yeah, I've been here ever since. So I literally grew up in the halls of the organization, like literally running around office to office, bugging the crap out of people. So
he was such a brat.
Still am, kind of.
Oh boy. Okay, so and then when did you start, Gabe?
I was in my early 20s. Very early 20s. My sister and brother-in-law introduced me through a friend of theirs who was in Scientology. Yeah, he was a field staff member, so he made a lot of money off of us. He got 3 people into Scientology. So I just started off because I was having some, issues with a relationship, and the perfect segue to get somebody into Scientology is, they have a problem, and use Scientology as a solution. And I bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, they do that. So staff.
Yeah.
I designed that thumbnail because I know that you have no money as a staff member. I mean, you can barely make ends meet. And usually as a staff member of an outer organization, you are having to pay everything because you have your own rent to pay. You have your food to pay for. You have your children to pay for. You have everything, all expenses, your vehicle and gas and, everything. But you're expected to be there full time. And they had day-in foundation sometimes in order to make it so that you didn't have to be there all the time, so that you can, have some sort of a other second job.
Yeah.
But I don't even know.
Vancouver was one org at one point, and then got split into a day-in foundation. So then the staff members were able to pick day or foundation. My husband actually was on staff in the early 70s, late 70s, early 80s. And he was in that transition when it went from day to foundation. And he told me stories where they would have like maybe a hamburger a day if they were lucky.
Oh, man.
Gross. Very gross.
I know. Yeah. So I saw reports about people not being able to make it, and we were losing staff, and people were, not able to get clothes and take care of the kids or stay on staff. And we were losing a lot of staff. And I did a whole, what's called an evaluation, where you analyze a situation, you find out what the why is, like, why is this happening? And then you propose a solution that remedies it. And so I've done a lot of evaluations. I think I did 20 or something like that got approved by David Miscavige even, I definitely did a lot. I don't know if it was that many, but it was a lot. And so because he required to be, the approval of everything practically. But I did this evaluation on the staff pay and came up with the reason, and devised a solution in coordination with the finance office, because I felt that the staff should be paid first before all the other stuff. Because if you don't have them, you don't have anything. And
you know what, though, I think you're probably, I can see the response to that being, oh, that's just WOG think. Like, that's how they would respond to it. Like, you're just trying to be a
worker oriented,
a regular company, a Homo sapien, like, this is not how we think.
Yeah, it's not third dynamic way of thinking.
Exactly. It's very first dynamic oriented.
Yeah, so it was work oriented, and it was also not exactly per L. Ron Hubbard policy, because in the finance issues, money goes to reserves first.
Right.
It's just ridiculous, because you're not going to have an organization if you don't have the staff. And I was saying, let's just make a little modification here to pay. So, and then also I thought that it's really stupid the way they have this policy on paying by dateline. Because it's a fixed thing where the oldest bill is the next one that gets paid next only. So you have to pay by dateline. It's an L. Ron Hubbard policy, and it's just the way it's supposed to be. Meantime, you've got the power that's going to shut off, but it's not the dateline bill that has to be paid. So that was also something to be addressed. Like, let's let's be rational for a second, and and start, like, let's pay the most pressing bills, But I think that policy even talks about that's not the way to go. Just pay by dateline, and everybody else can wait. But some of the creditors weren't going to be waiting.
No, and it's hard to audit in the dark.
Well, what about not setting the money up to reserves so you're not constantly worried about bills? Because I remember in Vancouver, the amount of times where we actually had to get people to donate to pay the bills so we could have phone lines and lights and everything. Like,
that
we're spending this much money up lines.
Yeah, that eventually was forbidden to do, to ask, because it was out PR to ask public for money.
Yeah.
But like when I was on staff, and this is just, I mean, I left in 2013, left staff. I didn't leave Scientology until 2014, but I was on what's called the Ad Council. So it was our responsibility to pay the bills and all this other kind of stuff. And those restrictions, trying to get anything done with those kind of restrictions, which were the LRH policies that we were following, it was very, very difficult to get anything done. Mm-hmm. We always managed to squeak toilet paper out, though. Enough money for toilet paper.
But that's not always true, because a lot of the staff, including Shauna Pratt, would bring in toilet paper. Lorraine Taylor, same thing. These are longtime Scientologists in the area, and they would be bringing in, they'd go to Costco and just get an extra, thing of toilet paper and bring it in for the org, because if they didn't, we wouldn't have any.
Yeah, and I would actually steal a roll. I would steal a roll.
I forgive you, Gabe.
It's awful, but you do stupid things because out of desperation, because there's such a scarcity of stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
See, these are the things exactly. And there's also another policy by L. Ron Hubbard about, like, a huge percentage, I think it's 30% of your income needs to go to promotion, some gigantic percent, because promotion is going to make money. Outflow equals inflow and blah, 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 right? And so a huge percentage of your income is supposed to go to promotion. However, can we come into the 21st century? They still, printing press and, mailings and triple gloss, whatever stupid stuff. They're just wasting money. I mean, we were spending in international management to do the international management magazines and everything.
Yeah.
Oh my God, $250,000 just without a thought. And it's just ridiculous. Meantime, people cannot. Why are people saying my mic is a problem? I don't know.
It just sounds a little bit tinny, that's all. So it may not be your actual mic you're using. I'm not sure. I don't know if I sound tinny.
Okay. So hold on a second. Let me unplug it and replug it back in, and we'll check.
Well, and Gabe, while she does that, we can talk. So talking about org magazines and how useless that was, I remember the push to always get the Vancouver org magazine out and how much that cost, because we're printing on a very small level, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what was the first thing I ever did when I received it? And I think most people did, pick it up and put it in the recycling. Like, it's an utter waste of money.
Yeah. And that was the all hands that you had to do to get it out the door, because it had to be done like yesterday.
And
but
I actually
just
have
postage alone was crazy.
Yeah, I have a commendation from Patricia, who at the time, for anyone who doesn't know, she was the dissemination secretary, so she was in charge of the org magazine. And I guess as part of an amends project when I was being naughty, I helped make sure that the org mailing got to the mailer on time or something like that. And I got a big commendation for it. It was always go, go, go.
Okay, so nobody say anything, and now listen to my microphone, because it was connected into my earphones. It looks like. So can you hear me better now?
It's not bad.
I can hear you, yeah.
I know, not hear me, but does it sound better?
It never sounded bad on my end. But people in the chat, let us know.
Yeah, let us know if it sounds better. But anyway, it seems like I've got it connected correctly now. But anyway, much better, Stephen. Thank you so much. Thank you.
There you go.
And I'm sorry about that. I don't know what I clicked, but I must have clicked something weird. And I'm so glad you pointed it out because I didn't want the whole thing to be messed up.
Nice.
Anyway, so the thing that got me emotional when thinking about doing this video with you guys is I know that you guys were struggling, and in management, we're supposed to fix that. And with the amount of hours I didn't sleep trying to help do things like that, you know, and then not get a product and get busted in trouble or whatever for doing you know, being worker oriented or thinking about the actual staff, you know, what a crime. But I didn't push it through, and there's hundreds of people that were suffering because of that. And you know, so it weighs heavy on my heart. And I was thinking about you two, because you both were together in an org together, and you support both of you know, each other, and it just like pulled at my heartstrings so much, because I wish I was somebody who could swoop in on a white horse and help you, but I didn't, and I feel so bad about that. But all I can do now is support the hell out of you guys, and really try and work my butt off to get people out of there. Which I've done for 19 years and will continue to do. You know,
I can understand how you feel, Amy, because I know being in HCO doing ethics and justice on people, it's very hard. You hurt people. I know I did. You know, you put people through the ringer. You do stuff that you wouldn't normally do under normal circumstances. So, and that's one of the main reasons why I do my channel, is because I want to help others, and I want people to see the real truth of what's going on. And in all honesty, Amy, we, as like an exec in when I was the ED, I always looked up to the Sea Org members and had a lot of respect for them and admired them for what they were doing, because it was a hard job. I know that. I mean, I spent quite a bit of time in Toronto and in LA, so I saw how the Sea Org lived. As a matter of fact, I signed plenty of Sea Org contracts too.
Oh, you did?
I was this close. I was going to leave my husband and I was going to go into the FBI. That's how, I was very dedicated to, it was but
we were so
I always wondered where was, but later on, I think after that whole reorganization of the admin, all the international Sea Org, the very top of the org board, where there was, you know, the exec strata.
Yeah.
There was that whole evolution. And that is when I had hoped that we would get help.
Mm-hmm.
With all those programs. I was so excited about those programs. And then once we got all these programs, it was like, you need so many people to actually do this stuff to make this whole thing work. It's so nuts. And then I find out after I get out, there's no exec strata. There's nobody there. It was just like, no wonder. All these aha moments that you have when you get out and you see what's really going on, right?
And then international management would just pump out these programs, and the programs would go on a computer program to nudge, and print out nudge. And so now you're buying 75 reams of paper in order to print out what management is, you know, sending out automatically by computers. And it escalates. If you don't do this target, it's going to the next person. If that person doesn't do it, and then justice is demanded, all just on a computer program. It's the most, that was L. Ron Hubbard again, called the Chug stupid ass system. I guess stupid ass wasn't part of it, but but that was an L. Ron Hubbard stupid idea. It just shows you how insane. Think it through, dude. I mean, all that's going to happen is the organizations are going to be flooded with, they probably should just turn on their printers with no ink and no paper and just let it roll, because it's just toilet paper is just nothing. But people are trying to comply, and you know, not have to confess their crime of not loading the paper thing or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was worthless and not helpful in the slightest, the way that was done.
Stress. It caused so much stress because, well, you'd get the computer generated knowledge reports. And I would get so many of them because I held so many different posts from above, right? Because you're responsible for all the stuff below you. And you just get overwhelmed by all this. And I, like a knowledge report is a knowledge report. To me, it's serious, right? It always was. So it caused like a lot of stress, let alone all the rest of the things that were stressing you out, right? So it was just one more piece of the stress puzzle that was horrible.
Man, we were so stressed in there. Just all of us, from the bookstore officer to the watchdog committee, every one of us were like so stressed because you had to get your statistics up. You had to comply. If you did anything that wasn't what the group thought was the greatest good, then you're confessing your crimes and getting punished, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Did you feel the heat, Jeff?
Oh yeah. I mean, when I joined staff in 2008 was when the Golden Age of Knowledge program and all the big releases came out, and the amount of pressure, because this is a program directly from David Miscavige himself, the amount of pressure that I would get put on me to make sure every single target was made. And when the event happened, we'd sell tons of lectures and books, but the week after that and the week after that and the week after that, I was expected to keep doing better, so always selling more, but that's impossible, right? Like
totally impossible. And
can't.
a stupid target to even set you. Come on. Yeah.
So I'd have to come up with reasons why I wasn't selling as much as the event release weekend or the consecutive weeks, right? I did pretty good. I was a good salesperson, and at the time I really enjoyed the lectures, and I enjoyed the awesomeness of the tech. And so that really came through with my sales, and I wanted to make sure that people were doing well, because like Gabrielle, and I'm sure yourself and most Scientologists, my goal for being in Scientology was because I thought I was helping people, when in fact, I learned later that I was actually harming them, but or at least continuing the harm, enabling it. That's why I feel like I was pretty good at my job, and I was rewarded, I guess, but I was also really kind of I was a pain in the ass as usual, especially to the Sea Org member who was posted in the org to make sure that I was doing my job. Her name was Lindsay, and I really have no respect for, or automatic respect for, any kind of person in quote unquote authority unless I feel they deserve it. Like this applies to any area of life, police or politicians or whatever. I don't automatically give respect. I expect to see why I should give respect. And so I wasn't getting that from her. And so I would just not give the respect that she's just used to automatically getting, just because she's wearing her uniform and she is a Sea Org member. So that didn't go over very well most of the time, but
that's LRH policy though, right? That was one of the first things I got nailed for when I arrived in Los Angeles was, what is it? It's a flag order. And I had no idea what these flag orders were. And it's like, I was told to go to the HGC, and I hardly even knew what that meant, to go get auditing at the training org, and they hardly had any auditors. So I just march in there and I'm like, I need to get some auditing. And I was just like, I was annihilated. It's like, who the frick are you? I'm totally green, but that's, it's like you're thrown to the wolves. But the Sea Org is a whole other can of worms, and it was a hard adjustment.
Yeah, I mean, both staff, and it's worked in that both staff and Sea Org punish staff members, just the way it is. It's just punish. And then like going back to your targets that you always have to be upstat, even if you have a big jump, well, make it jump again, and if you say that it can't be done, or that there's a reason why it's not done. There's a thing in Scientology that L. Ron Hubbard says as a policy for any excuse why something can't be done is the why is God. In other words, like, you know, it's a false reason. That's what his point was. It's a false reason. It's a why. So whenever a junior would tell you something couldn't get done, or the reason why something didn't get done was X, you respond with the why is God, and tell them it's unacceptable and you need to make it happen. So that's another L. Ron Hubbard-ism. Did you guys ever hear that?
I heard it and I used it. Both ways.
Also, just being reasonable as well.
Yeah.
Which, in the regular world, being reasonable is reasonable. It makes sense because you're using reason. But being reasonable and accepting reasons why things can't be done is so verboten in Scientology. It's actually a sign of someone being an out ethics downstat.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So you wouldn't think like, okay, so the why is God. Yeah. That means like the reason why something can't get done is because of some supernatural whatever that I have no responsibility or cause for, you know, and so I'm a fact and I can't get it done. And so, yeah, you're supposed to smash that. The why, that's the why is God. Forget it. Get back in there and get to work.
It was hard to be ruthless. It was very, very hard to be ruthless. And that was supposed to be my post, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even as an ED, I was supposed to be, you know, you run the organization. You're supposed
an ED, an ED, if anyone watching doesn't know, is an executive director. It's the senior staff member of an organization. And that's what Gabrielle held. Yeah. And so the pay system, did you guys go without pay at all sometimes?
Oh, never. I was always getting huge paychecks.
When you drove a Porsche.
What's pay?
Yeah. I mean, you know, there was times where we got, you know, like when there was a somebody that paid a lot of money for services, like bought like a large package. And then, you know, you'd get about maybe $100-200, but, you know, but for me, I would have a lot of backlog cramming orders, which were like correction, things that needed to be things you did something, you did it wrong. And now somebody has written this report and telling you need to fix it. So it's called a cram. So I had like backlog crams because that's just what people love to do in Vancouver, my seniors. So so if you don't get them done, your pay gets withheld. You know, it's like there you are voluntarily doing this, trying your best, you know, and then they're like, sorry, you can't get even your little $20 a week pay because you have outstanding crams and you weren't allowed to do them during work time. So you had to spend your own time trying to get these done, and you're trying to work at the same time. It was just like,
it's torture.
Yeah, your head
is completely forgotten about
that. There's no policy, even though policy is stupid, but there's no, but that's what you follow. There's no policy that says that you don't get paid if you have an outstanding cramming assignment.
Right.
So yeah, shove it.
Are you saying that they lied to me, Amy?
Yes.
Oh no.
And then plus you need a technical person to do a cramming assignment on a person. So if you don't have that available for the staff, because all of your resources should be delivering to public, you know, now there's no way to even get it done. There's so many different ways that in the C organization and in Scientology that were concocted to punish people. That meant, okay, like if I didn't comply with something, my pay would be withheld. If you were in a certain condition, your pay is withheld. If you didn't read the briefing boards, your pay was withheld. If you missed your study time, your pay was withheld. I mean, okay. I mean, come on. Yeah. And so that was happening down with you too, huh?
Oh yeah. That actually got implemented when the senior case supervisor, Shelley Hockett, who trained at Flag, she implemented that. She sort of brought Miscavige's Scientology back to Vancouver. It became extremely ruthless when she came back. She, was cleaning up the field and putting in standard tech and putting ethics in. She's what?
She was class 8.
Yes, she was a class 8.
Which is, I guess, technically the highest non-Sea Org level of auditor you can be, and then OT3 as well. But she left, and she was basically nothing. Like, I don't even remember. I don't think she had really any training or auditing at that point, right? She went right down there, and she was gone for what, like 5 years or something, or
I think almost 7 years.
Yeah, and she went, which seems like a long time to do that small amount of stuff. Like, but yeah, and then she came back, and she was brutal.
Yeah, she was hardcore. She was. She actually, there's a story where she said that she was security or interrogating international staff members at Flag.
That's what she was doing.
I mean, what happens is, and I know this from other staff members that I help get down to Flag, they become staff at Flag or wherever they are. They call them working installations. So, and it's very hard to get them back, especially if they have any sort of good skills, because there's always a shortage, right? So they use the class 5 org staff members as staff to do the work in the Sea Org.
There's a policy by L. Ron Hubbard that covers that, which is called Quicksilver, because what happened is that person was quicksilvered off of their training onto covering for delivery at the Flag Land Base for 7 years when they should have been training and coming back to their organization where they lived and worked. So when you transfer people from one job, unauthorized transfers from one job to another, it's called the Quicksilver in Scientology, or in the Sea Org. I guess in Scientology too, right? Yeah, that's a policy. Right. So
I remember that one. Yeah. But you don't question stuff like that because it's Flag. You wouldn't dare question it. And then she wouldn't query it because she's, under Sea Org watch there and who knows what else. But it's you somehow have to finagle and somehow figure out a way to get out of there.
What I think is funny too, now that I'm listening to you guys talk, when you're like, we're here comparing the two different things, like class 5 org and Sea Org and the differences and so forth. But at the end of the day, all the stresses and the lack of personnel and the lack of, I guess, competent personnel who are fully hatted and doing their job and everything, and all the flaps that we have to handle on a class 5 level, it's all happening in the Sea Org as well. Like, so, but as a class 5 or staff member, you think, oh, the Sea Org members, they have it covered. Like, they know what they're doing. Everything's perfect over there. But little do we know down the line that it's worse because it's kind of on a larger scale. Like, Amy is dealing with all of the orgs as opposed to just one org. And I remember talking like Chris Shelton about it as well, where he would, he'd get all the stats in from the different orgs, and he'd be like, what the heck, guys? And he'd have to like deal with it all and all that stuff. So it's not really something that I've thought of up until now, where it's literally the same thing, just on a little bit larger of a scale.
Yeah. Well, I remember, Amy, you're on mute.
That's okay. Amy. She's dealing with her mic issues.
Oh, okay. Darn, I know I forgot what I was going to say. What was I saying, Jeff? I was going to say something.
Oh, no. Oh my goodness. Well, we were talking, I was talking about the scale, just it's being the same problems, but the scale is just much bigger in the Sea Org, right?
Now I remember when being on staff, even in the early days, I remember actually wanting to be in the Sea Org because I thought life was easier.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have to, you know, pay rent. I wouldn't have to pay bills. I wouldn't have to have my job. I wouldn't have to like cook my meals. I still can't hear. Yeah. So actually going into the Sea Org to me sounded like life would be a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, from what I've heard from some people discussing it with them who were in the Sea Org, they felt that being on Class 5 org staff was actually much, much harder.
Right.
But having been, I didn't spend a lot of time in the Sea Org, and I was never off the EPF. But as an adult, when I was down there at Bridge Publications, I was essentially, you know, like involved in the Sea Org aspects, right? And it's not easier or harder. It's just a different thing, right? The pressure is so much higher, I think, in the Sea Org versus Class 5.
Yeah.
Only
So I
because
would
you can
say a few
escape.
things.
You can go away. You go away every night to your own space, and the
Yeah.
next day you're not at the org for, in theory, 8 hours. A lot of times staff members have to come in early because they have to do their, you know, their auditing or course time, plus they're just behind on their job, so they just put in all these extra hours for, you know, just to catch up. But
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna just check and see if anyone can hear me now.
Oh yeah, it sounds actually better
I'm sorry,
now.
what?
Yeah, screw it.
I
No,
can hear
it's
you,
fine.
so
I think what I needed to do the last time was actually go out and come back in because I reset it up, but it didn't reboot itself. Anyway, Stephen is the perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. You're my go-to on this. Thank you. And the one that complains the most. I appreciate you.
truth hurts, right?
Oh no, I do. He's always with me. I really appreciate you. Thank you,
Huge
Stephen.
improvement. I
Huge
noticed it too.
improvement.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I should have gone out of the studio. It's funny that it doesn't reboot unless you go out and then come back in. So that's done. All right. Anyway, I was gonna say, so differences between the Sea organization and Class 5. So as a Sea Org member, you give your life, your whole life, like all of you, to the cause. So they transport you, they uniform you, they feed you, they house you, they beat you, you know, train you and appoint you to different things. Like you are theirs. So,
Yeah.
and your time is theirs. Everything about you is theirs. They feel that they deserve and demand to know every single thing about you and your thoughts and your actions, everything. And I feel that there were hardships that you had as in a Class 5 organization that we didn't have to worry about because I did have a place to live. And I knew that we had a huge reserve. If anything, if all hell broke loose, you know, I was going to be physically able to eat, even if it was beans and rice, and have a place, a base, you know, to be at, and because they owned me basically, and you didn't necessarily have those things. If you didn't have the money, you were screwed. You were borrowing. You would, you know, jump to other jobs, but you did have certain freedoms, like you weren't behind the fences like I was 20 years behind those damn razor wire, stupid ultra barrier fences, having to write a petition to make one phone call while people listened in on it. You know, like I had no freedoms like that, you know. Yeah. Sometimes I did, like when I went down to work on Celebrity Center, I wasn't behind the fences anymore. And boy, I made a phone call to my Aunt Colleen. And I was like, just because I can call you, you know, hi, how you doing? Wow, I haven't heard from you in like 1,000 years. And I said, I know, I just call in to check in on you because I can. And because when you're at the in base, you know, you don't really want to write a completed staff work, which is called a CSW. It's like a petition that I call my aunt just because I want to, you know, like,
yeah, that would be weird.
Approved. Yeah. Like, you know, just want to touch bases with her because I love her and want to say hi, you know, your boss is like, your boss is going to say, just go back to work. Yeah. but so I had those sometimes occasional freedoms like that. And then they would also send me out to be a guest speaker with the Flag World Tour events that would go out to get public into Flag.
Yep.
And I would be the international management speaker at those. And I did them all over the world. I did them in Paris and Italy and Hawaii and New York and Seattle. And I loved it, as you can imagine,
Yeah.
because even though I didn't spend a lot of time goofing off or whatever, because I had a job to do, I felt the freedom of I was able to travel and meet new people and be off that property. So, and it was a good opportunity for me. But anyway,
New York.
I often wondered
on my bucket list.
Yeah, I often wondered how, I guess, the Sea Org members who were fired out to mission don't go fully out ethics, and like how they manage to keep themselves on the full schedule, because we used to have an extra room in our place, at my dad's place, and where I lived as well, and we used to house Sea Org members who were here on post on mission, and it just always boggled my mind how they were able to integrate themselves into like the regular world of these class 5 org staff members, and yet still manage to do their job on that full 16-hour schedule, whatever it ended up being. Because I would know they would come in at like 1:00 in the morning, and then they'd be gone by the time I'm going to post or going to work at my regular job. And I just, always boggled my mind how they can like regiment themselves when there's no one watching them, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's just so grooved in the Sea Org.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so grooved in. You just sleep deprivation is something that is part and parcel of being a Sea Org member. You're at a dead run, and like at one point, L. Ron Hubbard said we had 5 years before the world was going to blow up. Do you remember that? And so it was called 5 years.
What year was that?
Oh,
the only thing I remember was after 9/11.
No. Oh, you guys are so much later. It was way before that.
Okay.
And it's funny that Jeff, you were on staff at 2008. I had already been out of the Sea Org for 3 years by that time. Wrote my been speaking out since then. But no, so it was before that. It was, and those 5 years went by, and 5 more years after that, and 5 more years after that, and we're like, okay, so
yeah.
But we were at a dead run, always at a dead run, because the world was going to end, and the only people who were going to be salvaged were the people that we reached. And that's what you believe when you're in there. So you're willing to lose some sleep over it to help society.
Yeah, it's the sacrifice you make, right? And it's this, you do it willingly. I did. I mean, even in the class 5 org, there was times when we would have missions there or tours from the Sea Org, and I would have to stay there until they left because I had to secure the building. I mean, I finally got to the point where it's like, here are the keys. It's up to you. You lock up, right? And the other thing is that they didn't know how to send telexes. So, of course, they always have to send their daily report, right?
Yeah.
Of what they did and everything. So I would have to wait for that. So I would put some pressure on them to get the daily reports done.
Say, hey, I don't plan on being up all night tonight. Okay.
Exactly. It's like, come on. I got, and I had to work the next morning. And a lot of times, well, I mean, they weren't there at like 9 o'clock. I mean, they would come in during the day, maybe around 10, 11. But they were on their own. They had to do everything themselves. They had to go. I mean, I don't know how much money they would get, but, I mean, we had our LRH communicator. Her name is Lynn Rigg. She ended up going to Toronto to the Continental Liaison Office. Her and I were we were kind of like a Thelma and Louise. I was actually going to go into the Sea Org with her. But she was a Sea Org member, and she basically she had to handle her own housing, her own food, everything. And she was there in the evening and during the day, 7 days a week.
Right. Yeah.
Like, how does that work?
Yeah. You must like borrow from family members or something. Like, I was curious. So you had a job. Like, what did you guys do, Jeff? What did you do?
So most of my career has been exterior home detailing, so like window cleaning and gutter cleaning and washing houses and so forth. And then Gabe, you were a cleaner, right?
Yeah, I actually had to just start my own business. I worked for some of the Scientologists in the field. And that was kind of awkward because they were my boss and then I would have to handle them in ethics. So that was like awkward. And it didn't give me a lot of freedom. And the one particular company I worked for, they were trying to do the kind of like how they do the staff pay, right? They were trying to give you portions of or a percentage of the thing, which is actually illegal.
Who did that?
Joel Parker and Hillary Rockwell. I really do like
because wise companies.
Wise companies.
Oh, interesting.
Amazing.
Yeah. Meanwhile, they were driving a Mercedes, beautiful Mercedes, and nice BMWs and stuff like that, right? And I was hardly making any money. So I went, I'm just going to start my own thing. And I happened to like cleaning. And so I just started my own business. And I mean, it's basically what got us out of debt when I left, because we gave a lot of money, especially because, Chuck was on OT5, so he had to pay lots more. And then the whole Ideal Org evolution thing was roaring along, idling along actually. But yeah, I mean, it was crazy. So yeah, I had to work. I mean, it was staff members making donations too. It was like, we weren't, we had to. It's just like it actually became a status thing. Staff members giving money. There was a staff member that was a humanitarian, so she gave over $100,000.
Wow.
Is that Shauna?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Peter Byrne, who was the executive director just prior to you and a little bit after as well, I guess.
Yeah.
He had his own company. It was a painting company, and he was always giving tons of money. But he had a very successful company, so the money was just kind of rolling in. And painting is like, if you get a successful painting company, you're making bank on each job. So
yeah. I mean, that was the other thing that was really hard in a class 5 org is, there was because you were making money, you were fair game to donate. And I mean, and most of the people that attended the Ideal Org fundraisers and IAS fundraisers were staff, because it was mandatory for us to be there.
Oh, God. If you don't get you on staff, you got to get your money too. And if you get any money, they think that you owe it to them because, I don't know. It's like they're the only salvation. So anything you have, your time, your children, your money, everything needs to go to them, and they're not going to let up.
No.
And I would say on the note of children there, like there was a lady there who had a kid. I probably won't mention names, but because the child was, I think, maybe 8 to 10, she was always at the org. She was put onto reception as a like 9, 10, 11-year-old, just completely left alone to her own devices and not being supervised at all. There was actually 2 of them who were in Vancouver at the same time who were doing that. One girl was a little bit older than that, but like, can you imagine the PR, like the image of having like a 10 or 11-year-old kid manning reception, answering the phones, doing pages over the intercom right up front. And it just leads into, and from my experience, like complete emotional development issues, because they're put into this role where they're expected to be very responsible, yet really what they need to be doing is playing and learning how to be normal human beings, right? So
Yeah,
Yeah.
and doing
it's
school.
horrifying.
Yeah.
I mean,
I had to train them.
was that
Yeah.
person considered a staff member or just?
Yeah.
Yep.
They were 13 and 14 years old. They were staff. I mean, they
That's not
weren't
legal.
there all the time, but you know, still, it was, yeah.
But when I was on staff as a 14-year-old or 15-year-old coming back from the Sea Org, when I managed to get out of there without finishing the EPF, I was told that you can be on staff full time as long as you do your coursework, your regular schooling until you're 16. But that never happened,
Oh yeah,
right? Like,
that's the same with me. You know, when
yeah,
I was 14, I went off of I think I finished 8th grade and I was on 9th grade when they recruited me for staff, and my mom
Oh,
said I couldn't join staff until I finished 9th grade. So I just like, nah, as I went through the last of the 9th grade, and then I joined staff full time. And when I was signed up to join the Sea organization, my mom said she needs to continue her schooling, and they said, "Oh yeah, for sure, she's going to do that." And I never saw another day of school. I mean, I was sent
yeah,
to Copenhagen, you know,
yeah.
to recruit for the Flag Land Base, in Copenhagen. Is that I just turned 16 years old, and I'm traveling around Copenhagen and Paris and all these different places trying to recruit people. I had no idea what I was doing. I was getting lost. I didn't have money to get back. Some stranger who saw me totally lost in Paris helped me get back to Copenhagen. It was terrible. Luckily, I survived, but
Yeah.
they're irresponsible. They're irresponsible with their staff. They're irresponsible with their pay of staff and taking care of the asset that they have. They're so consumed in buildings being an asset for them that they will buy a building and let it sit and rot for decades and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions and millions of dollars, and never pay the staff. They don't
Yeah.
value the staff,
That's like
Anyway.
Toronto Org has been sitting there on the old org, the building on Yonge Street.
Oh.
It's been sitting there for at least a decade.
I think it's over 15
Really?
years. And this is a big building in the middle
It's
of
huge.
downtown Toronto, which is the biggest city in Canada, I
Yeah.
think, aside from
Oh
maybe
yeah,
Montreal or something.
it's
But
big.
like,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. And it got so bad that people were like smashing the windows and graffiti tagging it. So they basically just boarded up the whole first floor, so no one could damage it. And yet,
It's a lie. It's a lie
yeah,
that they're expanding. And because they buy real estate does not equal expansion. And that increases assets and reserves, which is David Miscavige's stat. But let me
Right.
tell you, David Miscavige, if you're watching, that's a stat push.
Yeah.
You should go to the
Staff pressure.
report to
Report
the
to
rehabilitation project.
Oh,
Yeah.
that'll be the day, eh?
yeah.
Oh yeah, he's not long. I don't think he could be possibly long for this world, because the place is just so criminal, and what they do financially, with draining even Sea Org members, senior Sea Org members' accounts
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
take their money. They're just so fixated on money and stats. I mean, I think this conditions. I mean, oh God, L. Ron Hubbard is the one who generated all this insanity with his
Yes.
dumb, stupid policies that everyone kind of, blindly applies as if it's just the most amazing thing ever. I did too when I was in there. But man, when I look back at it, I would have done everything different. I would have said, up yours, no way. That's not happening. I would have changed so many things, but
Yeah.
I can at least use my voice now. But yeah, like it's L. Ron Hubbard's stupid policies that made all this stuff so, like the statistics where you have to be up every single week. It's not rational. Say I'm a
And
letter
it's
writer
impossible.
and I wrote my ass off all week and I did 300 letters. Well, it needs to be 301 next week. So that means no day off. That means, no
Yeah.
break, no whatever. So pretty soon you're just burning the midnight oil, never taking a mealtime, never seeing your family, still trying to get it up, because if you don't get it up, then you're going to be punished. And
Right.
that's built into the system for every single position
Exactly.
on
And
a Scientology organization chart.
Yeah, and just to add to that, what it forces people to do is do really not cool things, or do like lie about stuff, like, that it forces you. And I'm using the criminal, I want to use the criminal word, but in the Scientology terms, it turns people into having more of a criminal mind. It's like you're so desperate that you actually do, like, criminal kind of things. And it's a hard thing to shake when you get out, not that you want, like, you don't do illegal things, but you get so desperate and you are so driven to do right and to get what you want. I know Chris and Jeff were talking about this narcissistic personality that is created, and you're molded almost into something like that, unless you're very different, or don't have that kind of pressure on you. But I definitely had that kind of pressure, like when you're responsible for keeping lights on in an organization, in a Church of Scientology of British Columbia, like, when you have to, like, sort of wrap your head around, this is the Church of Scientology of British Columbia. This is the church for the entire province. And you are left with the responsibility to clear that sector. Like, and I took it seriously. Yeah. So, you have to keep the lights on. You have to keep the heat on. The auditing has to keep happening. The students have to, keep coming in for course. And then, you want your staff to have pay as well. At least I did. So, you have to do stuff. You take money from people who don't have it. You do like really shitty shit like that.
It's a survival mechanism,
It is survival. Yeah.
And
it's not just your own survival when you have that kind of responsibility, right? Or at least that's the illusion.
Yeah, that's what you think. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. And that's why like in the Sea Org, crimes are magnified by 1,000x on you, because, like, okay, so I did something and they're like, okay, so that's equivalent to doing it to all Scientologists everywhere at all times. You're like, okay, good. Just send me to the RPF. I mean,
like, I was watching TV. I had the TV on in the background. That is idle. You could have been way more productive. That is like counter intention. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? It was just the TV. That was like my attitude at close to the end, right? When I'm getting all the security checking, it was like, yeah, you're being punished because you have TV on in the background. Like, seriously, come on.
Yeah.
Hey, Gabe, out of curiosity, who sex checked you?
Oh, you want to the senior CS, Shelley Hockett, Class 8?
Yeah. She did one sex check on me. Yeah. That makes sense.
This is a flag train. This is a big deal, Amy. When you have a flag train senior CS, senior sec checker, sec checking you, and it was by her choice on a tailor-made security check or interrogation.
Yeah.
I'm so
she was supervising
all of that happened to you. Oh.
Yeah, she was supervising mine, but one time she pulled me in.
Ooh.
I don't know. I don't remember why it was, but man, was I scared, because when you have someone of that importance and with that much altitude come off of her post of, supervising all the other PCs and pull you into a room and start interrogating you, that's a pretty rough thing. I can only imagine having to do that multiple times like you did. That must have been very intimidating.
Yeah. It's not quite the equivalent to being smacked around by David Miscavige, but in my little universe, it was pretty bad.
For Canada, it is.
For Canada.
Yeah, I feel you totally. I mean, I've had his little minions, like when Marty Rathbun was Inspector General and David Miscavige would sick him on me, and I'm sitting there in a room and I'm supposed to confess whatever. I'm supposed, these things suck. It sucks. I hate it.
And it's all intimidation.
It's all intimidation. You're supposed to be in fear. I don't know why they do it. The whole place needs to be just shut down. And I'm sorry that you guys experienced all these hardships and stuff like that. And, and what I went through sucks so bad. That's why I keep just speaking out, because people need to know what goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It's built in their policy that can never change, because L. Ron Hubbard is dead. So he wrote these things, and the policy says it never changes. So it never changes, and it's just going to stay that way. Maybe David Miscavige is going to change something. If he does, it's going to be worse because he's a complete nutbag.
Yeah.
He's so abusive, so abusive.
Well, it's really difficult for me to comprehend how someone can be so evil that they can see what's going on with their eyes over like the entire world, the entire spectrum of Scientology at every single level, and still keep doing things and just be like, I'm not going to change anything because that's what LRH said. I can appreciate what it's like when you're in, but now that I'm out, it's so difficult for me to like comprehend someone being that evil or that blind or just not caring,
Yeah. And it is evil and blind and not caring, all of those things, because like with his $5,000 pair of shoes, come on, one organization needs that, like how I have a feeling they're doing a lot more supporting of their organizations. See, one of the things that L. Ron Hubbard said is it's a suppressive act to close an org, to close any Scientology organization. And he even says in that policy letter that includes making a Dayan Foundation into one organization.
Yes.
Well, David Miscavige does that all the time. Like he did that.
LA.
Like so many times, especially since I've left, I kept hearing, "Oh, that organization is no longer. It's just but so that would require that everybody works full time. If you're gonna, there's no Dayan Foundation,
Right.
So how are you supposed to do that? So he's sending Sea Org members to the place. Anyway, he's one stupid solution after the next. But what it does mean is that the place is contracting, because he is closing organizations. Celebrity centers that were open are no longer open and turned into regular organizations and stuff like that. So there's a lot of that went on. But you're supposed to get declared a suppressive person if you close an organization. And David Miscavige has closed so many organizations. But anyway, stay in there, David. We don't want you out here.
I was just to sort of go further on that closing organizations. I know that the LA org was basically they were the staff members who didn't want to go into the Dayan Foundation were basically given the boot, and the Sea Org members came in. They were actually made to sign Sea Org contracts, and then this is what I was told. So they had staff members there. If they didn't want to sign a Sea Org contract, they got the boot. And then more Sea Org. I mean, I could be wrong because you know how rumors are, but then they turned it into what's called a model organization, and they were sending executives there for like short bits of training, apprenticeships, basically. Exactly. So he was just like, it was just so like unusual things that he was coming up with, even violating constantly LRH policy. It was like, that's what really started to stick in my head.
Yeah, that apprenticeship is from L. Ron Hubbard in LA org, and it's supposed to be made into an ideal organization because it's the closest to management. So it's the closest Class 5 org to management. It's supposed to be the most ideal. So never was it supposed to be turned into Sea Org members.
Right. Like he did it all wrong.
Right. Yeah.
He has them used. He doesn't know. He doesn't know how to apply LRH policy.
He has a misunderstood word.
He has
misunderstood.
That's so strange. I mean, I have to study a lot of HCO policy, so you learn about how you're supposed to build an organization and establish one and stuff like this. I mean, I can't remember how many clay demos I did of, how on the establishment side. So like when you start to see what he's doing and all the policy that he's actually violating, you're just like, this isn't going to work, you know?
Yeah. So I think it's probably really good that David Miscavige is in the position that he's in, because I think the fastest way to go down is by having somebody that's such a nutbag that turns everybody away
Yeah.
from the organization.
Yeah, he's going to implode it.
Huh?
The organization's going to implode on itself. It's just really self-destructive. I mean, and Debbie Cook, I mean, she just laid it out exactly what the violations were. And I mean, there was tons of people that left with when she sent out that email back in, I think it was 2011 or something like that, 2012.
Yeah, if anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, I have a video on my channel. It's Debbie Cook testimony. And it's got all of her testimony from the court case that Scientology filed on her because she broke her non-disclosure agreements. And but anyway, that was a big mistake for Scientology, because a lot of stuff came out on the stand, which David Miscavige should be highly embarrassed about.
Yep.
But it's forever available, and I rounded up all kinds of different parts and compiled it into a video and put it on my site. And I'm going to keep promoting it forever, just like your sign, Jeff. When you were in UK, David Miscavige beats and tortures his staff. Look up Debbie Cook testimony. I wanted that said because people need to know. Debbie Cook was so known and loved in the Scientology community by public. So it would have an impact on people if they saw that, wondering where is Debbie and what.
That's how my husband got out. My husband got out as a result of her sending out her email. It was passed along. It got to Vancouver.
Good.
Because I mean, Chuck was flagged public too, right? So I mean, I think that was probably the biggest wake up call that people had, like who were in touch, who are kind of like still on lines, who are still involved.
I think that it was interesting because Debbie Cook's email was all about the tech is wonderful, but your management you need to question because of these things that are against what L. Ron Hubbard wrote. Now that to a Scientologist will communicate more than if you just, talk about the whole thing being bad,
Exactly.
So that they could understand those, specifics, because you don't always trust management. They're regular people. They're not L. Ron Hubbard, God, L. Ron Hubbard. So it reached a lot of people, and that's why Scientology wanted to sue about it.
Yeah, especially the old timers.
Backfire.
Yeah, big time.
It really backfired.
It was a good one.
Yes. So Jeff, when did you actually leave?
So I left 2012. I had been dating my current wife now, Andrea, and then I sort of got roped back into being on staff and then was recruited to the Sea Org. But as a result of me being recruited, they convinced me to break up with Andrea. And I did for the time that I was in the Sea Org. And then as soon as I came back,
what do you mean Sea Org? Sea Org?
Sorry?
Sea Org? You joined the Sea Org?
So I was on staff. I was being the exec esto in training for Vancouver Foundation, I believe it was. And because of my previous experience as a bookstore officer and a successful one in Canada, anyway, the person who was in charge of book sales in Canada, her name was Emily. She sent in a mission to recruit me for Sea Org staff to take over her post because she was being moved up to a different post. I don't know which one it is.
Yeah, that wasn't
and so.
Cool. Sorry. From my end, that wasn't cool.
No, and that's an important thing to point out, that it was completely ripping off someone who was important, and there was a lot of pressure being put on me to be the esto at the time because the org was, as usual, floundering.
And the ESTO, just in case anybody doesn't know, that's an
right. Sorry.
establishment officer. ESTO, we abbreviate everything in They
I know.
abbreviate everything in Scientology. Yeah. So an ESTO is an establishment officer.
Yeah, and it's insane how quickly I slip back into it. It's
I know. You're talking to people who know the language, but I got to constantly think about the people who are listening.
Yeah. So the difference between like Gabe's post was in one division, mine was in a different division. The difference between like hiring and hatting people versus my job was to like make sure that they get through their hatting and get experience, and it's establishing them on post. Is essentially what
it's a longer term kind of.
Yeah, it's like building out what someone needs to be very successful at their post versus just like the basic job requirements and skills.
Yeah. It all sounds really good, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. It's a lot of busy work, I'll tell you that.
There's a lot of hitches.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the catch? What's the catch? There's a lot
exactly. So I was being trained as that, and then I got recruited for this post, and I was sent to Ontario, the CLO there, the Continental Liaison Office, the Sea Org there, and I was toured around the advanced organization that was the property that was built or bought there, but never built yet. They hadn't renovated it. As I was doing my boot camp for the Sea Org in Ontario, the people at Bridge in Los Angeles, which is the publications organization in the Sea Org, realized that things weren't going fast enough, and I think they had kind of looked down on this organization because there's very few people there. It's not a very like ethical. I was just going to say snap and pop, which is a term I haven't thought of in a while. It wasn't a very like high level organization, very like podunk kind of Sea Org organization versus the one in Los Angeles. So they quickly flew me down there, and that's when I realized that I didn't actually want to be there and got into it with the powers that be over at Bridge. So, but yeah, they convinced me to break up with Andrea, and we have a story about this on my channel already. But the problem being is that Andrea's when I was on staff, Andrea's parents there's reasons why Scientology wouldn't like them, and so they said, well, I need to break up with her, and I did stupidly. I was very lucky that when I came back from the Sea Org that I went begging back and asked her for forgiveness, and now we're very, very happily married, and she's helping support me and speak out against Scientology, even though she was never a Scientologist. So
right. Oh, she's lovely. I've seen her. Yes, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yuck.
I had them over for dinner at my house when I still lived in Vancouver. We had like an SP sort of dinner party.
That was emotional.
Yeah.
You don't live close now, or what?
Not anymore. No, so he's in Vancouver, where I'm originally from. Yeah. And then we moved out to Ontario, which is how many kilometers? I don't know, 3,000 something, 4,500 kilometers away from Vancouver. Yeah. Right. So we drove across Canada with my husband and 2 dogs to move here because his family's out here. My family's basically gone. Okay. And no thanks to Scientology, but that's a whole other story in itself. I left. I got really sick. My leaving was more of a physical reason for leaving. I had developed hyperthyroid, although I didn't know what it was at the time. But thanks to Dr. Google, I kind of figured out there was something really wrong. But I was still going on to post and still doing my cleaning and etc. But I had all these wacky symptoms, and I had lost about 20 pounds in, I don't know, a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks. Like I was dropping weight like crazy. So I got diagnosed with the hyperthyroid, and then it was getting worse. So it's an autoimmune disease. So I was staying home and, watching TV, doing like very, out ethics things like watching TV and trying to get my health back to normal. And shame on me, right?
Yep.
And I tell you, one of the catalysts to leaving was watching Leah Remini on Dancing with the Stars. I love Dancing with the Stars, and she's like chirping off the church, right? And I'm like, oh my. And then I'm kind of going, well, that's kind of interesting. The cognitive dissonance, it was just like, oh my gosh, it was just wild. But I wasn't getting any better. And I'm, the medication, blah, blah, blah. So that was the medication slowly start to take its course. And I did eventually get better to the point where I could work. And I mean, we had tons of debt. So I had to work. Otherwise, we were going to go under. My husband had a full-time job, but I mean, we were giving thousands of dollars to the org. He went down to Flag for a big service he did down there, and I mean that alone was about 20 grand, and we ended up
It's
donating
amazing.
$35,000 to the Ideal Org. It's just like the money, it was just coming out of us like crazy. So, the priority, like you don't want to lose your mortgage and stuff like that. So my focus was to just keep working. So now I'm not in the org. Yeah. So you have time to think.
It's interesting. Yes.
Yeah. So the distance, right? And
yes.
Like I said, like little bits of information, like Leah sitting there on Dancing with the Stars going, she left the church, and I was just like, wow, that's crazy. But anyways, it took at least another year for me to get out. In the meantime, I'm doing stuff down at the org. They're trying to drag me in, doing, an ethics program, which entailed the sec checking, the interrogation by that Class 8 auditor or CS. And after that, this is what really threw it over for me was after you get this interrogation, you have to do what's called a KR handling. I'm sure you know
AR is
that.
a knowledge report.
A knowledge report. And so from the interrogation, all your overts and withholds are written down into a knowledge report form, and it's given to you to go and handle them all. Now you have to take responsibility for all your overts and withholds. And the executive director, Peter Byrne, who is a supreme poophead.
No.
I really would like to use harsher words, but I'm just going to be.
It was a shithead.
Today I'm going to behave. So he gives me this program, and it's like, it's crazy. It's like basically just study the OEC volumes.
Learn everything.
Pretty much. And I just went, screw this, I'm done. And it was kind of like happening at the same time where my husband was also, he was out for 2 years prior to me, but didn't say anything because he was terrified to leave him. Oh, that's a story and a half, Amy. So finally, one day we just, I think we were having an argument about money as usual. And he just said to me, I thought he was having an affair. And he said, I'm out. Because I asked him, what's going on? And he said, I'm out. And I'm like, you're out of what? He says, I'm out of Scientology. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then something just clicked in my head, and I said, so am I. And that was it. It was just this decision. It's like everything sort of fell into place.
Right.
And I was just like, I'm not doing this anymore. And it was such a relief. But, about 2 weeks after we got declared. So, and that's when the whole disconnection thing kicked in. And that was 2014.
Wow.
But it took a whole year. It took a whole year to actually just like make that final decision to break away.
Oh, I understand. When I left despite all the abuse that I witnessed and experienced and received and whatever, 27 years worth, and I left from the I had to escape from the Rehabilitation Project Force. Despite all that, when I
Yeah.
left, I wanted to be on good terms with Scientology, and
Oh,
I said,
yeah.
"I believe in L. Ron Hubbard, it's just the organization is bad, you know, is I can't support the organization, but I still believe in the technology," and that's how my mindset was when
Yeah.
I left, and I remember vividly telling, like, an aunt and uncle that statement on when we went out to dinner, you know, and looking back on that now, it's just completely nuts, but mind control does wear off. It does wear off, and
Yeah.
you do get your mind back, and you can and the important thing to do is read up on things, learn about what a cult is, learn about what human rights are. Like I didn't
Yeah.
even know the Declaration of Human Rights at all. Like I didn't know them. Because I'm thinking that Scientology is it, and it's just so far from it. It's not even funny. And
Mhm.
yeah, we had a lot of rights, and if they don't want you to know these things, that's why they control all the information. We had our TVs confiscated in 1980, and so
I've
from
heard.
1980 to 2005, when I left, I never had a television, and I even had my pet confiscated, as everybody knows, because I complain
Yeah.
about it all. It pisses me off so much. Yeah, they
So much
own every single
violation.
interview. Yeah,
Well, I mean, that
but
wasn't the end of just Scientology because, see, I mean, it was still like you, it was, I think, the tech still works because everybody who was applying the tech was doing it wrong. So
right.
we did dabble in the other Scientology field, the independent field for a little bit. But
Did you?
yeah,
I
yeah,
I
that's a whole
refuse.
other story in itself.
We people like there was a lot of X's at the time because there was huge offloads from the int base and just a lot of people leaving right around 2005 and 2005, 6, 7, like that whole time period. There was a lot of people and then networking and getting together. And there was this independent kind of movement that kind
Yeah,
of sprung up. I
yeah,
refused to go. I didn't want to be labeled. I didn't want to, like whatever, do your thing, but no, that's not me.
yeah,
And that doesn't mean I don't like you as an individual. I just don't want to do it. And so I never got involved in that. And but yeah, some of those people ended up being pretty wacky. Honestly, they just
Yep.
like, oh,
I
give it
kinda
up,
think you
give
have to
it up.
be.
Like,
Sorry,
yeah,
Gabe.
come on, give it up. Let's take a look at like the person who wrote this. Study his history. L. Ron
yes,
Hubbard, his history.
yes,
I was shocked at what I found. I was
yeah.
shocked. I was like, I am such a stupid, stupid dupe forever, ever,
How could I?
you know, praising this individual who is like, oh my
Yeah,
God, just evil. Just
yeah.
evil
Who is
with a
nuts?
bad history.
Yeah,
Totally nuts. Totally
yeah.
nuts.
I
But
I
there's so much propaganda though that is
yeah,
constantly put forth. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
would like to counter with your thoughts of I'm so stupid for
Okay.
believing that. With
Please do.
you were completely told over and over and over and over and over, and then again, how great he was, how
Yeah.
professional he was in every single field he did. Um,
Yeah.
and then of course, if you ever went to the Life exhibition on Hollywood
Which I
Boulevard,
was
which
in charge of.
you were in charge
oh,
of,
I saw it.
um, like
I went through
It's
it.
beautiful.
the last thing that's there is like this huge wall of proclamations
Yeah.
and
Oh my
medals and
God,
all
all of
this
that
stuff.
stuff.
And you're like, wow, like I am putting forth this person's dream. And so it becomes very important. And it's difficult to think that anybody would think other than he's amazing, right?
That's true. In the Ron mags that were done, they had all these. It's called Ron, like it would have his name Ron, and it was
Yeah,
Ron the Master Mariner,
Mhm.
Ron the Explorer, Ron the Writer, and it was all these Ron mags, like a whole huge series of them, and it was the
mhm.
most elaborate magazines about how L. Ron Hubbard just, with documentation and certification and proclamation and all these different things in
Oh,
these, and we
bullshit.
were made to read these things and understand these things. And this is the person that we're following. He's amazing in every field.
Yeah.
And, I should be seriously impressed. I couldn't do one half of one of those things that he did,
Yeah.
supposedly. And then you find out it's all a bunch of crap, made up lies, total scam.
Yeah. And then you
so
look
betrayed
back
and
now.
so done.
Exactly. Betrayal that's a tough one for me. How deep the betrayal goes, because you put everything, your heart, your soul, like everything you have into it, and you're betrayed. So I mean, there's like the fallout from all that kind of stuff, where I mean, I don't trust people that much. I have to get to know them pretty well before I start trusting. But I mean, unfortunately, that's the nature of the trauma, right?
Yeah, I know, totally. And it's hard to really like let your hair down with somebody who's never been in any part of your life experience, because there's just not an understanding there. And it's hard to make have somebody understand it. But I mean, I've grown up since all of that, and my heart is full of love for people and compassion, and like it is for you too. I mean, thank you for using your voices, because every single experience is unique, and everything that you experience is important for people to know, because people can learn from it.
Exactly.
So I wanted to support both of you, and I will
Thank
continue
you.
to support the both of you. You're lovely people.
Mm.
I feel honored to be here with you. And I just wanted you to know that, while we're suffering in the Sea Org, which I talk a lot about because that is my experience, I do know that it was hard where you were. And anyway, that's why I want to support you even more now, because I didn't fix it when I was there, but I can help you.
I know
I'll
that
send you a
feeling.
copy of my knowledge report.
That's right. I'm trying to fix it too, Amy.
Sorry.
So we're both on a mission.
Well, you have, some people haven't seen this yet, so I'm going to show it again. This is what I get for all my hard work.
I love that.
Yeah.
SP Meritorious of Valor.
It's so much bigger than Tom Cruise's medal. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Bigger.
And he doesn't have one of these.
He does not.
Yeah. You might have a helicopter, which we saw many times when we were in the UK. But he doesn't have
a shirt like yours.
Wouldn't it be funny though if you found out his address and sent it to him? That would be funny.
Send it to his fan mail. Yeah, he wouldn't get it, but should we take some of these questions just to make sure that there's nothing unanswered here, and then
so we'll start off with
you want to do it, Jeff?
Here. Britsy74 SA 14 something ZAR. I'm not sure what currency that is, but
South African maybe?
Could be.
Zurich?
Amy,
Zurich?
sending you an inbox from South Africa.
Oh.
Okay. I'm not sure what that means, but that's wonderful.
I don't know, but you're probably going to find out.
Something's in your inbox.
Good.
Lorna, the lovely Lorna, who, if you guys watching do not know, she has done a part 1 interview on Gabe's channel, Escaping the Cultiverse A. She's another Vancouver Scientologist or ex-Scientologist who has a very, very heartbreaking and very well worth listening to story. So check it out.
I had to kick her out of the org.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. I mean, it really goes to show you, because Gabe and Lorna are very close. It really goes to show you how amazing Gabe is, because even people like Lorna, who were, supposedly wronged, and myself, who Gabe put my ethics in so many times, we still want to hang out with her, and we both love her very much. So it just goes to show you how amazing you are.
I can see why, for sure. Absolutely. You're easy to fall in love with, for sure.
Yeah. And do make sure that everyone watching, go over to Gabe's channel, give it a subscribe. I'd like to get her over 1,000 subs sooner than later. So anyway, Lorna says, I remember Jeff as being a brat, and I'm thrilled and a little surprised, being honest here, to see how much of a great person he has become. It's true. I've said it
Wow.
before and I'll say it again. I was not a good person when I was in Scientology. I don't know why specifically, but I imagine it's, the stress and the trauma of having to deal with it. And as soon as I left and really left for the last time in 2012, I've been such a much better person, and I've been
Wow.
more empathetic, and I really care about people now. So I just kind of look at that saying that, it's Scientology was kind of creating that part of me, or at least bringing out the worst in me. So I'm glad to
But
be
I
gone.
saw the good in you, Jeff.
Thank you.
I did. I always saw the good in him. I could see that heart there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ubeek. This is our security guard from the UK protests against Saint Hill. He is very much in love with you, Amy. So,
okay. Well, send me a picture.
Sure.
Send me a picture. So I send love back. Thank you. Is it Ubeek is the name, or is that a
Yeah, his name is actually Brad. You can see him on he was the security guard. He wasn't one of the ones hired by Scientology. He was part of the protest, and he kept us safe on the road. He gave me this delicious ginger tea, so I could keep my voice somewhat together after screaming so much at people.
Yes.
As well as held an umbrella for me, gave me a power bank so I could keep streaming. He was an integral part to having that protest go off as well as it could. So, and he very much loved you. So.
Oh, well, love back to you.
That's
thank you for being there with everybody too.
Yeah, it was amazing. He was, like I say, integral to the success of that.
Right. Wonderful.
Selma, complicated last name. Question. What does it do to your faith in Scientology when the org is so poor that there's no lights, etc.? Does that feel like you're reaching any goals, or is it all included in the cognitive dissonance?
Ooh.
What do you think, Gabe?
Oh, that one is tough.
Did it affect your dedication at all?
It made me want to get Scientology out more. The problem was within. That's why that was happening.
Right.
Anything wrong with the organization was always internal. That's somewhere in LRH policy.
It is.
It's L. Ron Hubbard.
And even if there's any bad news, like a news article or something like that, the problem is internal, even though David Miscavige doesn't like that L. Ron Hubbard policy. It's true. The problem is internal, and it is internal. I agree with that one line there. But one of the other things I was going to say is in an organization, I bet you think that you're the only one that's not expanding, like everybody else, right? Nobody else is either. Nobody else is.
When you watch those events, and I would sit there and you think, why isn't Vancouver booming? What are we doing wrong? What do we have to do? And you turn that over and over in your head, and it just it pushes you to do better. But it also makes you think you're not doing enough.
Right. You're in your own island. Unless you go to all these other organizations and see that they got 2 staff members and that they have no toilet paper, you think that you're the only one, because the events, which is information control, makes you think everything's booming. We're a household name in, and worldwide acceptance of Scientology, and your little shit place sucks. And you have to work harder on that. Yeah. It's by design. It's by design.
Yeah.
I used to get actually pumped up every time there'd be an Ideal Org opens by the little man, David Miscavige. And then we would have an Ideal Org fundraiser or something and think, oh, our turn is next. And I would envision because as orgs would get announced as buildings would get announced as potential new orgs for Vancouver, I'd actually drive over to them and be like, oh, I can imagine this and picture it, right? And it's been 21 years since they started looking and raising money, at least.
What Nothing. In the heck? And that money isn't there anymore. It's not like it's sitting there ready to go. No,
They've
it all went to reserves.
Every single dime out of people at this point. And it's just
Oh,
it
That's a
makes me
video. Yeah.
sick.
It's a video I want to do with my friend Lorna, is all the ways that Scientology takes money out of you. Or
Mhm.
actually, I was the caption would be how it sucks money out of you, because that's what it
yeah,
just sucks the life and the money out of you, right?
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Definitely
exactly.
do that.
Stay
Yeah.
tuned.
The
Oh,
SP chef. So this
oh
is
yeah.
Samuel. Yesterday we did part 1 of an interview with him. He's an ex-Sea Org member from St. Hill. And
Oh,
Intense.
good.
tomorrow we're doing a part 2. But his story is also, as usual, quite tragic. And
Mm,
it is so in depth that we're going to be going into his story that there's going to be a few parts to this.
okay, wonderful.
Um, Question: how did he feel your thought about all these KRs, even though it would have mostly been off policy, as it is part of ethics gradients, and once before the KR was not done first? Um,
I think I know what he means. It's when I was referring to the interrogation program that I got, when
Right.
you get the silly knowledge reports done after you get the security checking done. And what is he
mhm.
asking? What were my thoughts? My
Yeah,
thoughts were, this is bullshit. Those were my thoughts in the end. This
tell us
is
what
such
you really think,
bullshit.
Gabe.
Yeah. And I was like, so like I had so many KRs written on me. It was crazy. It was almost like a witch hunt. That's what it felt like to me. Because a lot of my seniors were all OECFE BC or class 8, or they were all very trained. And it was like, I wasn't.
Yeah,
I
Right.
wasn't, I was mini hatted. I wasn't even full hatted, because I was trying to keep a roof over my head, and there was no time to do it. Anyways, I mean, I would see these KRs, and of course, I'm the ethics officer, so I would see my own KRs, and I tried so many times. I just wanted to like shred them, but I
Yeah.
didn't. I filed my own knowledge report.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, Matt,
brutal,
you
Gabe.
Matt, my
I
husband,
heard that story.
oh yeah, straight into the shredder.
Bravo.
Everything went straight to the shredder.
Yeah. I admire that.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Anyway, so those are my
Uh,
thoughts.
cool.
Awesome.
SP chef again. Which was your favorite type of report? His was the annoyance report.
Wow.
There are so many, and that is another video of all the different types of reports.
We
Oh
should
yeah.
do that soon, because I was
Hey.
thinking about that as well.
The things that shouldn't be.
That's my
The
favorite too, because
Yeah,
it could be anything.
it could be
catch-all.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to say at the end, "This is okay,"
This is
even though
okay.
what you
Like,
just
what does
wrote,
that
what
mean?
you just what you just wrote was not okay. But in the policy, you have to say at the end of this, "This is okay." Doesn't even make sense.
I know. I
Much like
remember.
most things in Scientology, though,
I
it doesn't
know.
make
You
sense.
just did it because everybody else did, right? That mob mentality. Oh, Lord.
And he
Yeah.
and
So funny.
Samuel is full of questions.
Oh,
This is his
wow.
last one for today, though. Have you ever used your own money to buy books from new releases simply so that you could meet your personal order target? And I think this is probably for
To
me.
you.
Yes.
Absolutely, I have. Um, if there was not, if I was like $50 or so behind my stats for the week, I would 100% just take some money off account, or just
Oh
go
yeah.
buy a book
Oh,
or something like that, just to push it off so I could go
Yeah.
home,
I
especially in the
remember
early
Wednesdays.
times.
Yeah. Wednesday
Yeah.
nights, I would get a call from Jeff or a text. You want to buy a book? You know what my answer was.
You can go yourself, I think, is your answer.
Pretty
I'm
much.
busy trying to get my stats in, Jeff. Leave me
Yeah.
alone. Because you'd be up in a telex room until, Lord
All
knows
hours
what
of
time
the
in the
morning.
morning, trying to like get all the stats sent up lines, and I'd come up and be like, "How's it
oh,
going?"
Oh, Amy, I'd be yelling over the PA to get their stats in, because it's like
yeah,
midnight, and I'm just
Mhm.
yeah.
like so angry.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm at the other end doing
Yeah,
stat evolution at Int Management, and of course
right,
we don't sleep
right.
on stat evolution. We don't sleep at all because we have to analyze every single org in the world.
Oh,
And David Miscavige ordered that the full stat book of every org in the world had to be printed on paper, even though we have it all sitting right on the computer in front of us, and so I get all these stat books stacked up, and I have to go through every single one of these things. It was probably like 17 cases of paper a week that we burned through just printing graphs. Not kidding.
Wow.
And hole punching and putting them in binders and giving it to the management people, which was me. And then I would go through them and how could I even do it anyway? So many organizations in one night and filter all the orders that had to go out to every single, and I have nightmares about it still, where I just close my eyes and push send on all the orders because I couldn't physically do it. I couldn't filter everything. I couldn't read all that traffic from management going out that all had to bottleneck through me to everybody.
I had a dream where I actually had a bed in the telex room.
That's amazing.
Oh, I love that.
This is the mind control. It's insane.
Yes.
My goodness.
Oh, that's perfect.
All right. Barb tries or Barb trees. Amy read your book, watched almost everything, and my question is: do you think DM held some sort of irrational hatred towards you because you went through so many trips being tortured by him?
I think it's his general thing. I mean, his whole demeanor, his whole general thing. And at one point, when I started just putting my foot down, then I became a specific target. But before that, it was just generally. I mean, I had a thick folder of commendations from him. I wish I had it so I could shove it up his butt of all the bad things he said about me. Oh, is that right? Is that why you promoted me here and you wrote this commendation here and you did this and that? Because I did. You're the star WDC member. I had it all in his handwriting. I had a whole thick folder because I dealt with him a lot. And so, but I don't think it was specifically me being at the imp base. Anywhere around that person was psychotic, and I mean, he never hit me or anything like he hit several of my peers, but he did grab me around the neck and throttle me one time and threaten me with the RPF because he didn't like the way his speech was written by someone else, not me. Anyway,
that would be wrong target. That would be a wrong target. That's an SP characteristic.
He was guilty of wrong target all the time. He wrong targets everything. Anyway, no, it's not directly at me, I don't think. I mean, I don't know. Could be. I heard he said terrible things about me behind my back.
Oh, really? Oh, that's common.
Oh, yeah, totally.
It's almost like he's 1.1 on the tone scale.
Oh. I hated staff meetings. That was my thing. That's where we would get degraded big time, is at staff meetings.
Worst time. Worst. That's a whole different video though.
It is a different video, and yes, that's for sure.
Danielle, the lovely, amazing Danielle Chamberlain,
Danielle.
the one and only. It just occurred to me, it seems that the exoduses are cyclical.
Yeah.
Do you think so? Large groups leaving every 10 years or so? I would say so. I think that every so often there's an event that happens that gets out to the people and causes people to leave. And certainly Debbie Cook was one of them. I think the anonymous protest was another one. And I do think that SPTV is going to be that next thing that reaches people, as long as the messaging is sent correctly towards the right people. Because they're all the staff, all the public and staff members in Scientology are on the internet. Maybe not the Sea Org members, but the people who are giving money and getting sent up lines are. And so those are the people that need to be reached, I think. What do you guys think?
I agree with that. I think that, I don't know if it's like, it says, Amy, you would have been like Biddy and said, I'm not doing that. Yeah. I wish I could go back and say it to David's face. That's for sure. Yeah. But anyway, I don't think it's like a timed thing, but by event, like Jeff said. And in 2000, and it's not external really events always. It's like internally. Some things like the Mission Holder Conference that David Miscavige went and declared a whole bunch of people, and then
That
so
was
many
big.
people left because of that. Yeah, and that was 82, and that sparked that off. And then the finance police going around and ripping people new whatevers and taking money from organizations. They destroyed some organizations. That would have been another one. And the whole exodus where David Miscavige said, I'm going to take this base that had like 700 staff and wind it down to 35 loyal people because he only felt that there was only a few people worthy of his presence or something. Good, get rid of us all. I think I thank you for that. Luckily, before just before the hole got locked down with bars on the windows and everything like that, that was my office. Okay. That hole was my office for years. So just before the locks went on, they sent me to the Rehabilitation Project Force in Florida. And thank God that they did, because I would still be there today. And I shudder to think, because I would say, I don't have any way to get off that property. Ask Jackson. I couldn't even dig 4 feet under in order to get out of that stupid place. So, thank God they sent me I was defiant, and they sent me to the Rehabilitation Project Force in Florida. And then they locked the doors and windows. And, and so I was free to be able to, I did spend 2 years in the RPF before Matt and I escaped, because he, I was trying to give it a go. And then Matt came and said, let's get the hell out of here. And I said, yes, sir.
Matt was your knight in shining armor. There you go.
Sent from God, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Saved me.
I think the golden age of tech was another step in the right direction of getting people out. That was
so
huge.
many people.
I heard so many people upset.
All certificates were canceled, and you had to read it. It didn't matter if L. Ron Hubbard certified you himself. They were canceled. You have to do this whole new thing. Yeah. David Miscavige is really a piece of work, and all of those are tied to him. But anyway, it's okay, because people are getting out because of it. So carry on.
Exactly. And I think that's the important thing.
Yeah.
The other important thing that everybody must do is pop over to Gabe's channel. And please make sure you subscribe, because there's a lot of stuff that's coming out on your channel very soon that I think people will be interested in. So please go to Escaping the Cultiverse A, and let's get her over 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah, it took me a long time to come up with that.
And I love it. It's so Canadian.
Well, I had to have Canada in it. That was the thing. And honestly, it is a cultiverse that we're in, that we have been in. And I'm still in my mind trying to escape. There's still layers of it, of this stuff coming off. So
it's something that I've been thinking about a lot, and I think that it is endless. I don't actually think that I will ever be like what I would say, yes, I'm done, I'm recovered, because every time I have a conversation with lovely folks like you, I realize that there's even more and more of my life and my personality, and just any part of me that has been affected by this. And I think it's impossible not to, because I, as a second generation, I literally was raised by it. And
I know.
My goal now, though, is just to, like, because I've kind of told my story, it's to tell other people's stories and introduce more people to it. And I just love all the support I get. So
yeah, that's wonderful. And it is very healing whenever we get together, you just can't, it just flows, like all the talking and all the comparing notes. It's so healing. It is healing. It's just, it is.
The perspective, like from how I felt about Sea Org members, and how like, I had no idea, Amy, how you felt about that, but it's that was a revelation for me to hear you say that.
Yes,
that's amazing. Anyways.
Yeah, and also so wonderful to hear. Yeah, I knew you guys were struggling and everything like that, and they just take the beauty that individual people have of wanting to help and exploit it and use it and wring it out and stomp on it and then spit it out.
Sometimes.
But
So,
Anyway,
Amy,
oh
I
my
would
God.
like to say on behalf of all Canadian Scientologists, you are forgiven
Yeah,
Thank you.
officially.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
exactly.
we can
Yeah.
end cycle on that, and
Thank you.
we can move on to other more important
Amnesty.
things.
Good. Cycle and cycle. That's another
Yep.
End cycle on that.
word.
That would be an amnesty.
Yeah.
issued
Yes.
from Canada.
I give you the status of Kakan.
Oh, wow. So I got 10 lives, right? I get
Yeah.
10
you go.
lives and none of them have been lost yet. So I've got 10 lives. That's amazing.
Woohoo.
Jeff, oh
There
man,
you go.
I need to get a t-shirt that says Kakan.
Don't make me make you a t-shirt. Like this one.
Shirts so much.
Thank you for saying this to me, by
It's
the way.
so
Yes,
creative.
of course.
Oh my
You are
God.
so and I also wanted just to let people know we have started a YouTube channel for the Aftermath Foundation, and it's just getting started. It only has, I don't know, I think it was 100, and I think we mentioned it yesterday in our live, and so now it's bumped up to 400 or whatever. But so if you
Woo.
haven't subscribed to that, we're going to have a dedicated Aftermath Foundation site, and that's where you can see the Surge video and the Rosemary's
Yeah.
story and new things that are going to be coming out. So that's
So is this specifically going to be about like
Aftermath stories.
like stories of people who use the aftermath to get out kind of thing, or
yeah, we're gonna there's a lot of different promotional actions that we're going to do about the Aftermath Foundation, and when we do the fundraisers and everything like that, we'll have that channel involved. So there it is.
Yeah.
So subscribe to the Aftermath Foundation.
Amy, you just triggered me. Promotional
Why?
actions.
Did I say it like that? Did that trigger you? It is that's a real world thing though, honey.
It is. It was just like, oh, right. I completely forgot about promotional actions of an organization.
we should do a
Oh,
video
God.
just on that one policy letter.
Oh man.
All right.
Yes.
Uh,
But the aftermath,
all right,
sorry,
honey.
I didn't mean to take away from the promotion of the Aftermath Foundation.
Oh no. I understand what you're saying though. That's wonderful. But yeah, and subscribe to all of our channels, PTS for Life and Escaping the Cultiverse A and Queen BSP and the Aftermath Foundation, and just thank you for everyone being with us and listening to our nuttiness of what our lives used to be.
Yeah.
And it's so wonderful that there's all these people who are supporting and listening and giving us a different point of view and giving us encouragement when we think we're stupid idiots. And it's really helpful. It really honestly is.
It really is. I'm overjoyed by the amount of love that is in this community of quote unquote suppressive people. Yeah, it's great.
I love you,
I
all
think
USPs.
yeah, exactly. Well, I'm gonna end off here. I would like to thank both of you for coming and talking with me today. It's
Thank you
always a
for
pleasure, and I hope
inviting
we can do
me.
it again soon. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you. And for everyone who's watching in the chat, thank you, and we will see you again soon.
We will.
Bye.
Adios.
Bye.